Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the June 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Moraine City Council to order at 6 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Allen? Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Doherty?
Here.
Ms. Marcus? Here. Mr. Burchett?
Here.
Mrs. Witt? Mayor Murphy?
Here. May I have a motion to excuse Mrs. Witt, Mrs. Allen?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes. Now, if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council has copies of the June 8, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Does anyone have any changes or corrections? Hearing none, they are approved as submitted. And now we have a special presentation by representatives of Racer Trust. If you'd like to come up to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Carolyn Grogan. I work for Arcadis, and I'm here today with Racer Trust. We've got Patricia Spitzley, Director of Government Relations and Deputy Redevelopment Manager, and Pam Barnett, the Racer Trust Cleanup Manager. So we're really excited to share some good news about what's been going on at the site, the Racer Trust Marine Facilities site. That's former GM. And then some upcoming work that we've been in collaboration with the US EPA on for the site. So, yeah, this image here that's up on the screen. Well, I guess just to kind of back up for a second, because I don't know everybody's familiarity with Racer Trust, but Racer stands for Revitalizing Auto Communities Environmental Response Trust. So for me, that's a little bit of a different client whose name I got wrong just then. But oftentimes, as a consultant, I do work for like oil companies or the railroad or other like kind of big corporations. And Racer Trust is unique in that they were established to manage environmental liabilities associated with the foreclosure or bankruptcy of GM. So, you know, it's just a unique situation and very much focused on redevelopment. So on this slide here, the image on the left shows the site as a whole with all of these different parcels, and the different colors represent different ownership. And I just think that the redevelopment story here in Moraine is fantastic, with Fuyao just booming and that beautiful new ODOT facility out there. So I think it's a pretty cool story for how things used to look out there when I first started on the project, which was back in 2011. So that kind of gives you a visual of what the site is in terms of land area. And then on the right, I know it's kind of tiny and hard to see, but that's our monitoring well network. So you can see the site is peppered with hundreds of monitoring wells. So we collect groundwater data to understand the contaminant plume that's associated with this site, which we have a graphic of that later in the presentation here to get you a visual on it. But that's what we're here to talk about, is this contaminated groundwater plume and the work that we've been doing. So next slide, please. So this slide touches on our current activities at the site. So we have different remedial measures in place. We refer to them as interim measures. So I guess if you kind of think of it like if you're sick and you go to the doctor, you first maybe treat the symptom, and that's what we're doing right now. But ultimately, you want to get after the problem, right? And then that's what we're here to talk about that's coming up here in the near future. So our ongoing remediation, the top image there is extraction well, we call it DN13, Dryden North Wellfield. It's a Montgomery County well that we use to extract groundwater and capture the lower aquifer plume, the deeper of the two plumes that are at this site, to prevent it from migrating further down site. And that remedy has been in operation for, I don't know, 20 plus years, probably? Okay. So it's a good operation for us for that containment measure. And then the last time that we were here presenting, we were talking about installation of, it's called a dynamic groundwater recirculation system. So it's a groundwater treatment system that was installed to address the contaminant plume under the Riverview Platte neighborhood specifically, to resolve the issue of vapor intrusion for that community. So we also have the vapor intrusion mitigation systems installed in homes where we've been able to get access to. But this interim measure that we're operating now and was implemented in 2019 is to just address that symptom so that there's no longer a pathway for vapor intrusion under the neighborhood. And then that last one is about the planning for the remedy implementation that we're working on with the US EPA, and that's to resolve the problem. That's not to treat the symptom, that's to make the problem go away as a whole. So next slide, please. So these images are of the site, and just to kind of get you oriented here, it's just two images of the groundwater contaminant plume that goes under the site. One's from the year 2019 before we installed that DGR system for the neighborhood, and the other one is from 2021, the last time we mapped it. The blue box is around the Riverview Platte neighborhood. The Great Miami River is to the west there. And so if you're looking at the image on the left from 2019, you can see that yellow shading going under the neighborhood, and that's the dissolved contaminant plume. And then if you look over on the right, you can see that there's barely anything left under the neighborhood. So when we designed this remedy, we modeled the groundwater to predict how fast can we resolve this issue, and we estimated 5 years, and we've reduced the plume to concentrations that are acceptable below the neighborhood, and it only took about 2 years to do that. So it's a great success story for us. The technology itself is really cool. It's sustainable. You extract the groundwater, treat it in carbon above ground, and then re-inject that water into the ground surface to kind of create like a flushing type of a mechanism to remediate the groundwater. So we're pleased with that. It's a great success story for that symptom. Next slide, please. So now we're getting at the heart of the problem. This is what we refer to as the source area, and you can see these are, I think these are total volatile organic compound concentrations, or VOCs, that are shown, and then the warmer coloring shows the higher concentration at the heart of the plume. So this is at the corner of Springboro and Stroop Road, and under a building that's used for warehousing currently. So the way that this site is regulated, it's overseen by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and we, RACER, with our help, proposes a remedy to the US EPA, and we look at different types of technology to clean up the plume, what's most feasible, what's cost effective, how long does it take, and then we propose to the US EPA, this is how we think we should clean up the site, and that's called the Statement of Basis. The Statement of Basis was issued December 2022? 21, okay. And then the US EPA issues a final decision saying this is the remedy that we're going to proceed with. We are in agreement. And that final decision was issued at the end of last year. So we've submitted a work plan to lay out the details of how we're going to clean up the source area. Next slide, please. So the technology that's going to be utilized is called enhanced reductive dechlorination. I'm a geologist. We have brilliant minds at Arcadis that know all of the details of this technology, and that's not me necessarily, so I might fumble through this one a little bit, but essentially what the technology is injecting a carbohydrate into the groundwater via injection wells, and that carbohydrate feeds the microbial community that's already there, naturally existing, but it makes that microbial community kind of flourish, and they consume the VOCs. So our carbohydrate is emulsified vegetable oil is what we're injecting into the ground surface. We've used this technology at this site before as an interim measure, one of those kind of remedies that I was talking about earlier. We just used molasses for that part of the site. So the different carbohydrates have different kind of pros and cons, and you weigh out what works better for a different type of geology. All right, next slide. So this is the proposed work. You can kind of see the layout of that ICP building on the screen there, and then the target area within the building. So it's a robust well network. We're gonna put in 40 injection wells, and then periodically, like maybe once every 6 months or so, inject that emulsified vegetable oil into those wells. We'll probably have an injection period of about 5 years, and then natural attenuation will take care of whatever remains in the subsurface. So next slide. I talked about the modeling that we did for the previous work, and this is an image generated from the model for the remedies that we're implementing. So the one on the left shows what the plume would look like after 1 year of operation of that DGR groundwater system for the neighborhood. And you can see that plumes kind of cut off where the pink dots are. That's what the model predicted, and that's what's happened. That's kind of where we're at right now. And then after we implement the remedy for the source area, then that's what will take care of the rest of the plume and is shown on the image on the right. And next slide. I think that's it. So is there any questions, comments, anything I could help clarify?
Now, when did this start? Because you said it took 5 years, but this has been a lot longer than 5 years in the process. And you said, well, it was supposed to be 5 years, but it took 2 years. Why wasn't this done at the very beginning, 2 years, and people didn't have to put up with it for as long as they have?
So when did what start exactly?
You, in your speech, you said it should have taken 5 years, but we did it in 2 years. Okay, 2 years when?
Okay,
Like
so we
2
installed.
years ago?
Okay, we installed the dynamic groundwater recirculation system to address the water under the neighborhood in 2019, and the plume below the neighborhood was cleaned up in 2021. We still recommend operation of the VI mitigation systems because we want to get at the heart of the problem, and it's a conservative measure, obviously, for the protection of human health to continue operation of those systems. Additionally, they're good for addressing radon.
When did you put the things in the homes? In 2019?
No, the VI mitigation installation started in 2013, 2012.
Well, that's why I said, why didn't you do what you did in 2019 and 2012 and figure it out back then instead of waiting from 2013 to 2019? And the people that live over there had to put up with everything that they've had to put up with, their bills and everything.
Well, so VI mitigations are a pretty effective way to address the problem. Instead of waiting for years to go by to address the problem, you install the system, and within 30 days or less, then your indoor air concentrations, if there is a problem, are addressed. So to install a VI mitigation system is industry standard for how to address a vapor intrusion problem.
But you waited from 2013 to 2019.
So the 2019 system installation is different than the systems that are in the homes.
Okay, but why didn't you install that then to get rid of the fume under the homes in 2013 instead of 2019? That's what I'm asking. Why did it take so long to do it?
So the process of getting system took us a while. We were maintaining to get to that point. Even after we decided that something would be done, it took several years to get everyone on the same page on what would be done, what would be most effective. We have a limited amount of money, and I know the members of the to do at the site, and we, we're a trust, so we don't make anything, we don't sell anything. The funds that we have are finite. So we have to work with USCPA, and USCPA approves our budget every year and also points us in a direction. So I understand vapor intrusion. I mean, it was a great name for it because it is very intrusive to go into someone's home. We do offer stipends to the people who allow us to come in and operate a system on an annual basis. And the good news here is, if we were doing this today, we would not have to put the systems in. The groundwater is much better and under the neighborhood. But we still have to treat the source. So even though the system is working good, it's just a Band-Aid. We're at the toe of the plume. We have to treat the source.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Terry. I don't understand why there is, a 10-year, 11-year period that we're finally at a point that something's done to actually eliminate, not more or less put a Band-Aid on it. And especially when there's possibly people's life in jeopardy for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I understand the sensitivity of this topic. I can tell you that, this site and this project are near and dear to my heart. I spend a lot of time on it. There is a regulatory process that has to be followed, and I can assure you that Racer and Arcadis have done everything we can to push the process forward to move it along. And that's what we're excited for here, and what we're telling you about is to get to the point where we can do this work and resolve the issue. I don't have a better answer for you than we want to move.
The action process is what this site, it's a regulatory process what this site has gone through, and it's very long, and there's a lot of steps.
So I just wonder if we did anything wrong as council, as a city, because I got a feeling, you go into northeast Ohio, there may be a lot more action going on there right now than and at a lot faster pace than what we've seen here. Just don't know if we, was it us that maybe just didn't step up and scream loud enough to get something started like you're doing right now early on? If that was a process that could have been done instead of getting tangled up in regulatory process.
Yeah, I think that you'd have to be careful in what you're comparing to with other sites in Ohio, and I think I catch your reference, but there's still a very rigorous process to go through for other sites as well.
Systems, the mitigations were offered as soon as there was the science to back up that we had an issue in the neighborhood.
Yeah, if I may, they were put in for the immediate protection of the residents while they figured out and got a handle on what the issue was and how to address it. And so I think that, if I may, Pam and Carolyn were, recognized that there was an immediate issue, and that immediate issue needed to be addressed. And so how do you do that while you're figuring out what's going on? And the immediate issue was the protection of local residents, and that's why that vapor intrusion system was installed. It was installed to be an immediate stopgap of the situation while we were figuring out what the long-term remedy was. And so I think that there was an immediate recognition that there was an issue and that there needed to be something done immediately. I keep saying that word, I'm sorry. But something that needed to be done right away while we figured out and got a handle on what was actually going underground. And that's why the vapor intrusion systems were put in the homes.
And it didn't help that it cost the people so much money that they couldn't afford it. That their
So-
bills just tripled, and what you gave them didn't even come close to what their bills were. And they already, some of them, didn't have that kind of money to pay their bills.
We have successful implementation of these systems. We have residents calling us, asking us when we're coming back. So, I mean, we look at the usage of electricity and we evaluate the cost to reimburse that. And then Racer has increased well beyond the actual cost of electrical usage for the stipends in this community. So we're operating about 30 systems in the neighborhood, and residents are calling us to have us.
That's not what we hear as council.
Okay,
You might hear something, but we hear totally different. And we have to listen to the complaints, and we have to deal with the complaints that you guys are causing. So, you can go about but we can't. We have to listen to our people.
sure.
And you have disrupted everyone's lives. You have caused them lots of money. And now you're telling us, now you have a solution. The solution should have been 10 years ago.
I'm sorry, if there's anything that we could do, in your opinion, I would welcome feedback.
Well, that's what you're getting right now is feedback that, you can't go back 10 years, but you've put in a lot of people, if you have a remedy, you're saying that was 5 years and it was done in 2 years, but really it should have been done 2 years, 5 years before that even started.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
People
we,
shouldn't have to go through what they've gone through, and we shouldn't have to go through because GM. Go after GM. I don't care. But why do the people have to suffer?
I absolutely don't want any people to suffer.
Okay.
I do understand that there was a lot of discussion on how much the loss of conditioned air that these systems may have caused. And we worked closely with US EPA, and US EPA helped us come up with a number to pay them to compensate for the fan and potential loss of conditioned air. But I understand what you're saying, and I wish we could have been implementing this remedy from the first day, but we had to follow a process with US EPA.
So you more or less say it came down to a monetary situation.
No, it's a regulatory process that we have to walk through. Record corrective action is it's a straight line, it's a long line. And we can't, every year we have to get our budgets approved, which means this is the work we're gonna do for the year from US EPA. So they know what we're doing, and that, but it is a finite amount of money that we have to clean up the site.
Well, it's still yet a learning thing for us. We're an industrial city. We're proud of our industry. We don't discourage it in any way. But if something were to occur again, we want to know, did we do everything right on our part?
I mean, for us, when Racer was born, we became the repository of these properties, to be blunt, when General Motors went bankrupt, they just walked away from a large footprint of property and left this property in the bankruptcy court. And so, and most of it was in, what we call the Rust Belt, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, bore the brunt of that, right? And so, we get these properties, we work, and 2/3 of them have significant environmental challenges, as you see here. And EPA says, based on, conservative measures, this is X amount of dollars you're gonna get for cleanup. So that's where we started. And so we come here and we have to first figure out and get a scope of what the issue is here. And one of the first things then, as we're getting the scope is, we need to put a Band-Aid on it. We need to do a stopgap immediately so that we can we're addressing the concerns of the residents while we're looking at the bigger picture and then working with EPA to have a solution. Now, I get it, because we've done kind of vapor intrusion in other communities, and electrical bills go up and it's disruptive. But for us, it was we had to immediately do that. The alternative was that that property would just sit there if Racer hadn't taken it over, and there would be vapor intrusion in these homes. And you guys don't have the money for that, the state doesn't have the money for that, and it would sit there. And so Racer, came in, and we are now the owners of that property, and so our responsibility is to immediately stop the acute issue while looking at the long-term issues of how to stop it permanently, but to address the concern of the residents in those homes. And the vapor intrusion process is the gold standard of how to do that and do it in a small period of time. So I'm on city council too in the city of Lansing, and I am Lansing, Michigan. And so Mayor, I understand that you have to listen to the residents, and you understand the residents' concerns and the displacement and the cost. I really do, I'm sensitive to that. The only thing I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to minimize that, but I think the only thing we're trying to say is that when we became the owners of the property, we did the immediate thing to address the concerns that residents have had even before Racer came on, which is maybe this vapor intrusion. And so, is it a perfect system? No, and we know that there have been some costs, but I think it's important to share that that's kind of how we operated. We came in and figured out what we needed to do immediate to address the immediate issue while we're going through this very long approval process to address the long-term issue, if that helps, respectfully.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
We will now go into reports from the following. Finance Committee, anything to report? It's not here. Finance Director, anything to report?
I have no report, thank you.
Committee of the Whole, anything to report?
Yes, our last meeting was on June 8th. There will be a meeting following this meeting tonight, and at that meeting is a topic that I think some of the residents might find interested, because I'm seeing on social media that they are talking about it, and that is dealing with problems that we have on some of our properties that are not in good repair. And so we will be discussing a couple of those properties at the Committee of the Whole meeting tonight. Thank you.
City Manager, anything to report?
I have nothing beyond the written report unless there are questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Law Director, anything to report?
The only thing I have is a request to add a voice vote to the end of the agenda for liquor permit related to 2653 West Alex Bell Road.
Okay. Need a motion on
Yes,
that?
please.
Do I have a motion from anyone?
I'll make that motion.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Daugherty?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes. And I have my monthly report, which is for court report. For the month of May 2023, the gross revenues for Mayor's Court was $24,592 after various expenses and disbursements. A total of $18,306 was deposited into the general fund. And I have nothing else to report, so we will go into business.
Ordinance 2141-23, an ordinance approving an amendment to the city's personnel policy manual to add section 5.14 entitled Public Safety Full-Time Non-Union Probationary Employee Benefits.
This ordinance would approve an amendment to the city's personnel manual concerning fire and police full-time and non-union probationary employees. Motion to approve.
You've heard the motion. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes.
Mr. Daugherty?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy?
Yes.
Ordinance 2142-23, an ordinance to amend Moraine Codified Ordinance Section 121.04E1 entitled Non-Local Travel and Training Expenses Reimbursement.
This ordinance allows an amendment to the MCO section concerning council travel. This enables council travel legislation to be passed at the end of the previous year instead of the current year. This is on for a first reading. Second reading will be, and final adoption will be at the June 22nd, regular meeting.
Resolution 7952-23, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1 to the 2023 concrete program contract with LJ DeWeese Company Incorporated for additional concrete work for the reconstruction of 2 catch basins on Chief Woods Lane and West Dorothy Lane at an additional cost of $32,305.
This resolution authorizes a change order to the city's 2023 concrete program. This will allow for the reconstruction of 2 catch basins that have fallen into disrepair. I'll make a motion to adopt.
Are there any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Marcus,
yes,
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Burchett,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Resolution 7953-23, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Education of the West Carrollton City School District for the provision of a school resource officer at the intermediate school for the 2023-2024 school year.
this resolution approves a memorandum of understanding with West Carrollton City Schools in order to provide a school resource officer for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Motion to approve.
You've heard the motion. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Marcus,
Yes,
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Burchett,
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Resolution 7954-23, a resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriations between general fund expense accounts in order to provide sufficient appropriations to meet current and future obligations of the City of Moraine for the period January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023.
This resolution authorizes the transfer of appropriations within the Community Development Department in order to cover expenses for contractual obligation. Motion to approve.
You've heard the motion. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Ms. Marcus?
yes,
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes. Now we need a voice vote on a liquor permit.
Yes, Mayor, this is for a transfer of the current liquor permits at 2653 West Alex Bell Road. I understand that fire and police do not have any objections to this, and I don't see a basis to request the hearing.
And we do roll call, please.
We need a motion as to whether or not you want a hearing.
Anyone
this is a transfer of ownership.
Transfer of ownership is my
Yeah.
understanding. Is that correct, Chief? Yeah.
I make a motion that we enter no objection to this.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes,
Mr. Burchett?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes. We have no persons appearing before council, so we're going to go into other business. Fire Department, anything to report?
No report, thank you, ma'am.
Police Department, anything to report?
No report, Mayor, thank you.
Building and Maintenance Department, anything to report?
No report, ma'am, thank you.
Street Department, anything to report?
No report, thank you.
Parks and Rec Director, anything to report?
I'll make up for them. Next Friday night is movie night in the park. It's the second one. It's Top Gun Maverick. So come out for that. We want to see everybody out. The day after that, on July 1st, is the disc golf tournament. I want to say thanks to Dave. He gave us, him and Rosie gave us blessings to call this the first annual Shane Miller Disc Golf Tournament. So, thank you, Dave. We did get some discs for first, second, and third place that are really nice. So, I don't know if you've seen them, Dave, but they're really nice. So, I can't wait to give those out. And then the 4th of July is coming up. After that, Stranger will be here at 7. We'll have free inflatables and food trucks starting at 6, and then fireworks at 10 p.m. So please come out. You all are invited. Come down from Lansing.
Community Development Director, anything to report?
I would just add to that, don't forget that American Structure Point will be coming in next week, and they will be attending the Maverick movie. They will be there early, If there is interest in coming down and having a discussion with them, participating in their activities, I encourage that. We did send out postcards, so everyone will get a postcard in the mail, and they have the opportunity to come down and put their name in for a drawing for a Scene 75 gift card. So more than one thing to do that night. So come on down and enjoy the note. That's all.
City Manager, anything further to report?
I have no other items, Mayor. Thank you.
Law Director, anything else to report?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Finance Director, anything further to report?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Clerk of Council, anything to report?
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Marcus?
Yes, there's been a lot of comments on social media concerning the splash pad we talked about putting in, and the pool we had to tear out at the natatorium years ago. And people are wanting to know if there's a possibility of building some type of a water feature. And I've explained to them, and I think Mayor Murphy's tried to as well, that the ground is unstable. So the question is, at this point, is there another location that we can put some type of a water feature in? A suggestion was made to put it in over at the Civic Center, but I'm not sure that we've got enough space there for parking and everything to do that.
And does that mean that, I know we did the test, and Mike, you know more about this. We did the test for a specific area there at Wax Park. Is there maybe a possibly, redesign and move it to an outlying area there at Wax, still keep it within the park?
We would have to do a more thorough study, a geotech study, to be able to determine that, Randy, and that is something that maybe we could look into. However, please know that the water aquifer is underneath that entire property. And I think all of council will remember that on a yearly basis, when we had splash moraine, the pool cracked every year. The groundwater pressure pushed up and created significant expenses that our building maintenance department had to deal with every year. Some of those, we were essentially supplementing probably at a $700,000 or more expense each year for splash moraine, and a significant portion of that went into repairs. So the water aquifer and the water table over there is heavily concentrated. We're blessed to have that in the Miami Valley. However, it does make that area over there a challenge to be able to put in. I think Brent may know better than me, but I think we were going to, if we did the splash pad, there was about a $500,000 pump that would have to be installed because of
there was
the.
going to have to be a special pump to make sure that water was getting back to the river or wherever.
To circulate back through. Yeah,
So I guess what I would say on that, the splash pad was part of that 10-year plan, master plan.
Right.
That 10-year master plan got the 1 mile walking track around it, and that was it. So the rest of that plan was thrown out anyway. So when Alicia was here and we did all the testing of the ground and all those kind of things, it came back as it wasn't going to be the right choice to put it over there. We didn't, at the time, look at other places because it wasn't, the 10-year plan had that splash pad in it at Wax Park.
Right.
The plan wasn't to go anywhere else and look to put in a splash pad. Do I think there's parking over at the GCC? Yeah, there's plenty of parking over there. I just don't know where you're going to put it unless you tear the basketball hoops out. You're going to tear the tennis courts. I mean, other than that, I don't know where you would even think of putting it unless you put it right out in the middle of that field. I don't know if the GCC would be the best place for it anyway, but that's not for me to say. That's for our residents to say. So as far as the splash pad goes, I mean, do we want to put one in? If we want to put one in, you guys tell me and I'll find a place to put it. But that's got to come from you guys and the citizens to let us know, yeah, okay, you want one, but where would you like to see it put? Now, I know we're doing this land comprehensive survey. Maybe that will come out through that. I don't know. But the reason why it was scratched was because the ground is not sustainable over there.
I would like to add that Brendan touched on, the comprehensive plan is actually looking at the city as a whole, and part of that, they're also assessing our parks, the number of parks we have, the amount of acreage we have related to the parks, related to the size of our community, related to the size of the population. So there'll be some recommendations coming out of that that will, ultimately provide some guidance for us on what direction council would like to go. I think there's also the possibility to still consider other aspects of the plan. I know splash pad, there was a strong push of phase 2 and phase 3 that council had looked at that included playgrounds and some other enhance
There
and
were
an
several
amphitheater
things,
and
I
some.
gotta say, I had to scratch my head on that because there was a pretty good study done. We had
Right.
consultants do this and we actually approved from 3 different layouts, what we would like as council,
But even
the
if we
direction
don't
we'd like to
do
go.
the splash
But it
pad,
seems
could
like
we do the rest?
Once the splash pad was pushed out, nothing was ever said. It's almost like it's not known anymore about what, what came of the rest. The amphitheater, actually some vendors, stations were.
Well, the way that was
permanent
structured
vendor
is
stations.
that was the phase 1, and I think we've kind of been hanging in the balance trying to determine if we could push forward with phase 2 or 3. Now we're about halfway through the comprehensive plan, and at this point, I think that'll make recommendations on where the investment should be made. But we can look, as we're moving into the 2024 budget, we can always give consideration to phase 2 and phase 3 as part of that capital plan. That's
Yeah, I would
definitely
hope we would, because, once you have a direction, the next thing to do is follow the direction. And I don't know that, at least on a good progress, I don't know if we're doing that. It seems to have really slowed down, if not gone away.
But one thing can we address, because it has been brought up on social media. We had the natatorium. That pool was okay. But was it because there was always water in it? It was never emptied. Because they brought up, well, why could we have the natatorium and we couldn't have the other one if it's in the same ground? Can we address that? Was it because there was water in it all the time? Water was never out of that pool since we put the cover on in the winter, took it off in the summer. Is that why that pool was okay?
As I recall, it seems to me that that pool cracked and we couldn't rebuild it because of the same problem with the soil.
But it was there
Yeah.
for up to years.
Yeah.
But
I
I
would-
did not know.
I don't know if Rocky has the answer because he hasn't been here long enough. I know Bobby would probably be able to answer.
Yeah,
the
we've
past maintenance.
discussed that quite often, actually. And it has a lot to do with that, what you're saying. There was the weight of the pressure of the water that kind of took that problem out of our hands.
Right.
I mean, that may be the other option, is you could possibly go with something like that to eliminate that worry of a splash pad where there is no weight. You got a couple inches of concrete and that's it.
Yeah, it seems like that. Wasn't there something, once the splash moraine was put in, the pool didn't have the use, and at some point, maybe it wasn't built anymore, and it actually raised. And
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah. At some point, the dome stopped.
Yeah,
We were
had
having
a-
issues with the dome.
Yes.
So what we went to, basically winterizing it. And when we winterized it, there wasn't enough of that pressure to keep it
Right,
from cracking.
right.
Yeah.
And not only the water issue, but for the natatorium, as old it had gotten, compared to the water park, you just couldn't Band-Aid it and keep it going anymore.
Right, it had been there, what, 20, 10,
almost
20
30.
years? Yeah. Okay, because people brought that up. Well, we had the natatorium.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe in our capital budget, when I wasn't in this position, there was money for a pool. There was like $3 million, I believe, that was supposed to be allotted for next year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am on that.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know
and
we
that got
discussed
nixed.
a pool,
That
but I
got
don't know it
nixed.
went any farther than that.
And I think that might have been by Brian, but I'm not 100% sure on that either,
Right.
because I wasn't in this position at the time, but there was money for that.
I don't remember anything in the report. Well, I know
I'll-
we talked about it.
Yeah,
But it was
I'll
kind
get,
of
I can
ruled
get the capital improvement stuff that I have that has it on
Okay.
there. I can show you that there was $3 million
Yes,
allotted.
please. Show
Yeah,
us what
I'd
you
love to
have.
see
and
that.
Can you give us any ideas you have on where we can put a pool? If we could put that one back, or can we put another pool or a splash pad or something in?
Yeah, we'll have to,
But see, if we
That's
had a
not for
pool
me.
there again, we'd have to have it where it's indoors in the winter because we cannot take the water out of that pool. 'Cause
I
once
love
you
the
do-
natatorium. I mean, so many people use that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I think if that's the concept that we had and it worked for, what, 35 years, I don't know how long, however long, why would we go away from something like that? I think that's something that we probably should do.
They have dome structures now that are kind of like what you're talking about. It's enclosed in the winter and it opens up. It's just a newer design of what we had before. So if that's something you're looking for, is an outside plus an inside.
But other than taking the walls down, that was one thing about the natatorium. Them glass walls stayed up and you couldn't stand that pool in the summer. It was so hot in there. It was like a sauna.
But that's something we might could bring up during retreat and
Yes,
budget.
yes.
Yeah, budget discussion.
Okay, because the people were saying we're not doing enough for the citizens.
Yeah, and they're specifically saying there's nothing there for the kids, but then other residents were fighting back and says, what city does more for their kids than Moraine does?
Yeah, so I got numbers for you if you would really like me to go through them with you on programs that we've offered that nobody even
I
shows
know.
up for. Yeah, so, I mean, we can go down that road if you guys want. Like I said, I've got it all laid out here.
Yeah,
But we've canceled, I'll just tell you, in spring, we had 11 programs and 10 of them got canceled because there was nobody that came to them or the lack of participation to come to them. That's why we don't do gravity games and cardboard boat regatta anymore, because we had 2 people showing up for them.
Right.
Like, we need to look, we're trying to look differently now. We're trying to do
Right.
things differently, and all those kind of things, like, we don't want to keep doing the same that wasn't working, and we're just
Right.
beating ourselves in the ground. My staff works really, really hard at what they do, and for nobody to show up to those programs, it is so disheartening for my staff. I mean, they really are. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, it's not a good feeling when you put all this work into something and nobody shows up for it. Like, that's just disheartening on us as
Right.
staff for the city. So we are doing everything. Like I said, I got these numbers right here. And when we do a program and it is somewhat successful, it's not the Moraine citizens that are coming to them. It's people from outside the city that is supporting them. And I have those numbers right here that we could go through if you want. Even all the way down to the memberships. It's the same thing at the rec center. It's not supported by Moraine residents. It's just not. And I know that might be hard to take and hard to hear, but that's the truth. And with this new MyRec system that we have, we can track all those numbers. So it's all being tracked now. It's not being lost. It's all right in front of us, real time, right now, when somebody comes into the rec center. So I bet if we went to the rec center right now, there'd be more non-residents that have come in today than residents.
I think there's been something of a change the last few years as far as people wanting to be in crowds because we had this pandemic thing, and there's still people walking around in groceries and stuff, stores and stuff, wearing face masks. So I think there's some people that just don't want to get into groups. They're afraid of catching something. It's a mindset. I mean, I believe your numbers. I don't have to see the numbers. I believe it.
I mean, I guess I don't, considering what a group is, I mean, we're talking 10 people. We can't even, so another thing, we just did the summer lunch program. We just started it Tuesday, right? 12 to 1 o'clock. How many people do you think we've had? 0. Not one person has come to get a free meal.
And they worked hard to keep that.
A lot of kids that would come down, we were doing it at the parks.
Yeah, so when
The kids
we,
knew when it was, would show up on their bike.
so when COVID happened, we did the drive-through style, which we had,
It would be huge.
we would fill up the whole entire rec center's parking lot with a line of drive-throughing. So when COVID kind of went away, the state said we can't do that anymore. We had to do it in parks, and that's what we
Right.
did last year. Well, the numbers that were in the parks didn't reflect, it wasn't good. I mean, there'd be times we'd go to a park and there wouldn't be a kid. We'd have one kid. So we're doing all this stuff, we're cooking all this food, we're doing all these things for nobody to show up. So then this year we consolidated it to do box lunches so we aren't making food, to make it easier and catering it through a company. And that company, it wasn't easy to do, but we found it, we vetted them, we get them. But the
Right.
problem with that program is it's a reimbursement grant is what it is. So you guys approved $25,000 for the summer lunch program. The only way we get money back from that is by kids coming to get meals. That is how it works. And right now, we're 3 days in, that's 60 meals that we've ordered that not one kid is coming to get, that we have to pay for, that we're not getting reimbursed for. But we have to provide that meal for these kids. Unless you don't want us to. That's where we're at. And that's probably why I'm frustrated.
Oh, you're not the only one, because, you know, the citizens complained, and you try and tell them things. And, you know, you're telling them, you have to come, you have to do things, you come to a meeting, call us. They don't even call us on the phone. With regards to this stuff. And I'm like you, I don't know what to do to get people interested.
So I'll say one thing. The West Carrollton School, I think we obviously get hurt by not having our own school district. I think that's a
Yes.
problem.
Yes,
But West Carrollton is a huge, 90% of our kids in Moraine go to West Carrollton schools. In order to get flyers into schools, we have to print them off, we have to have them in bundles of 30, and it has to be specific to each school how many we take. But we have to pay for that printing. And we don't have a very big printing budget. So I was gonna even ask for more money next year so we could go that route, just to see if it works. But
Right.
other than that, we were supposed to have a meeting at the rec center with the school district. That's why I kind of wanted to come to that and ask them some questions about that, but that never happened. But like Kettering Schools, we send them an email, and they blast it through email. West Carrollton doesn't do that, and I don't know why. We're still killing trees to print everything off and wasting money on all that, when we could just send it through email, so.
So you're paying, maybe, like you say, maybe it's a different direction that we need to do, you know, just go at it a different way. And maybe these hard structures that we're talking about, you know, with revamping of Wax Park and that sort of thing, and making, and a possible full amphitheater, have outdoor events, that sort of thing, maybe that's what we can do for the citizens that they really would take an interest
So,
in.
and then that comes down to, do we want to do less programs, more events? Do we want to do,
Could be.
more events, less programs? Like, to have that direction would be,
how are
to
you
have a little
doing
bit
with
of
the
a
movie
direction.
nights? Because the movie nights are working, aren't they?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, we got more than some of the other programs, but it's still,
Okay.
it's
Right.
like, where's everybody? I'm hoping Top Gun, new movie, maybe not many people have seen it.
Right.
We'll have more people. We showed Zootopia. I don't know if Lego Batman's gonna be a big attraction, but we're trying to pick everything that's gonna hit,
Right.
families and
Right.
everybody else. So that's how that was kind of picked. The last one's Super Mario Brothers, which just came out, so hope that that's a big one as well. But we never know.
Yeah,
Fourth of July is good, Boo Bash is good, we know that,
Right.
Easter's been good. It's everything else outside of those three events that we just,
So the issue here is community involvement, or the lack, rather,
Yeah.
of community involvement, and they're not telling us what they want. And there were people saying they were gonna come to this meeting tonight, and I only see one resident here at this meeting.
and we love Sharon.
and she's not here to complain.
And she was not one of those who was complaining.
So I did see that Moraine communication
Yeah.
thing, I saw the
Yeah.
whole entire thread. I would love for these people that are on there talking to come talk to me.
Right.
Never
Tell
have.
us what you would like. If you don't like what we're offering, then tell us something that you would like. I mean, Chandler went all the way out to get this NFL flag football started. We got 24 people, 19 of them were non-residents. 6 of them were from Moraine. So those are the kind of things that we just don't see that support. We're not seeing it.
We're not seeing them tell us what they want. Instead, we're seeing them complain because we don't have ESP or something and know about it. And it really doesn't make any sense when one of those persons is a long-term employee. I won't say which one, but the person's been a long-term employee, and he's talking about running for council because we're not doing what he thinks we should. But I don't see him or any of the others in this meeting.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Mr. Miller, anything to
Hard act to
report?
follow.
Yeah, that's tough, that's good. I just wanted to thank the presentation from Razor Trust and the update on where you're at on this. So thank you for coming.
Mr.
That's all I
Doherty?
have.
No report, thank you.
Mr. Burchett?
Yes, thanks for coming. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay. All I'd like to say is 4th of July is coming. We won't have a meeting before now. Please come out for our fireworks. Last year, we had a great show. We had a great fireworks. Everyone has talked about how fantastic they were, so everyone, please come out. Remember, kids are out now. Watch when you're driving. I would also like to thank the Miami Valley Communications Council for broadcasting this meeting live, as well as any future rebroadcasts. This regular council meeting is adjourned at 6:56.